In the dead of night, on March 24, 1603, a profound silence fell over Whitehall Palace. Servants glided like ghosts through darkened corridors, while court officials whispered desperate prayers. Behind heavy velvet curtains, the most powerful woman in Europe, Queen Elizabeth I, had just taken her final breath. But what the royal physicians were about to discover would shatter centuries of royal myth. Elizabeth Tudor, England's legendary Virgin Queen, had carried a secret not written in ink, but etched into her very flesh, a secret that revealed the deadly price of power, a power sustained through illusion. The story of Elizabeth's mysterious death doesn't begin in her final agonizing days. It starts 4 decades earlier with a single devastating event. In October 1562, at just 29 years old, the young queen was struck down by smallpox, one of the most lethal diseases of the 16th century. It killed nearly a third of its victims and left countless others permanently disfigured. When news of her grave illness spread, panic seized the court. An unmarried queen on her deathbed meant chaos, civil war. Miraculously, she survived. But contemporary reports were strangely contradictory. Some ambassadors claimed she had emerged from the ordeal almost untouched, her beauty intact. Others whispered that her celebrated features had been scarred beyond repair. These conflicting accounts hint at a deliberate cover-up, an early desperate attempt to protect not the woman, but the sacred image of majesty itself. From that moment on, what had been a fascination with cosmetics spiraled into an obsession. Court records reveal massive orders of Venetian ceruz, a thick white paste made from lead carbonate. It was the key to achieving the porcelain white skin so admired at the time, a symbol of purity and aristocratic status. What Elizabeth couldn't have known was that this coveted cosmetic was more dangerous than any disease she had ever faced. Worn daily and sometimes left on for days at a time, the highly toxic lead seeped slowly into her skin and bloodstream. Her vibrant red lip color, made from a mercury-based pigment called cinnabar, only compounded the lethal effect. Every single day she was unknowingly layering poison upon poison, all in pursuit of an idealized mask of eternal youth. The irony is haunting. The very symbol of her power became the instrument of her slow, agonizing decay. Over the decades, the devastating effects of her beauty rituals became impossible to ignore. Courtiers and foreign envoys documented her shocking transformation. Her teeth, once a point of pride, began to darken and fall out. Her hair thinned so dramatically that she relied on heavy, elaborate wigs. Beneath the thick white paint, her skin grew gray and mottled. Ambassadors wrote home with undisguised alarm, describing her face as having taken on a waxen, lifeless sheen. By the 1590s, the illusion was cracking. The Earl of Essex, once her most cherished favorite, was said to have burst into her chambers unannounced and glimpsed her without her makeup. He was horrified by what he saw, a bald, trembling old woman, utterly unrecognizable as the radiant queen of legend. For centuries, historians dismissed this as mere political slander from a disgruntled courtier. But modern medical evidence suggests Essex was telling the truth. Lead and mercury poisoning produced these exact symptoms: hair loss, uncontrollable tremors, blackened teeth, and a steep neurological decline. What began as vanity had morphed into an invisible, incurable sickness. Elizabeth's famously sharp mind began to falter. Her moods grew erratic and unpredictable. Spanish diplomats described her falling into long, unnerving silences, staring blankly at the walls for hours. Others noted crippling episodes of melancholy and confusion. By her final months, she could barely stand or speak. Robert Carey, a courtier who witnessed her final days, wrote that she communicated only through gestures. In a final, poignant act of rule, she silently traced the shape of a crown above her head, signaling that James of Scotland was her chosen successor. For modern physicians, her loss of speech is a chilling but familiar symptom of advanced mercury poisoning, which attacks the brain and the nerves that control vocal function. The queen whose words had once rallied armies at Tilbury was now literally silenced by the very substances she used to preserve her image. Even in death, the great deception continued. Elizabeth had reportedly forbidden her body from being disemboweled, a standard practice in royal embalming. But her counselors, terrified of what might happen if the body decayed too quickly, ignored her final wish. The embalming process was unusually elaborate, involving multiple preservative fluids and a lead-lined coffin, sealed airtight. Whether by accident or by design, these choices may have preserved not only her remains, but also the forensic traces of decades of toxic exposure. 3 weeks later, at her state funeral, the public saw not the ravaged queen described by eyewitnesses, but a life-sized wooden effigy. It was young, serene, impossibly perfect, one final illusion, carefully crafted so that England's most enduring monarch would never appear weak, even in death. But fragments of the truth began to surface over the centuries. In the 1800s, when historian Arthur Stanley examined Elizabeth's tomb in Westminster Abbey, he noted the presence of medical instruments and unidentified containers near her coffin objects that later vanished from official records. Their disappearance raised unsettling questions. Could they have contained chemical residues linked to her embalming or to the poisons that had slowly killed her? Modern forensic experts agree that a lead-sealed coffin and preserved tissues could still hold measurable traces of mercury and lead. The final, definitive proof of what historians have long suspected may still be waiting. Locked away in her tomb, that Elizabeth Tudor had been the architect of her own destruction. Court documents uncovered in later centuries only deepened the mystery. Records from her own physicians describe treatments for what they called corruption of the blood, likely their fumbling attempts to counter the effects of heavy metal poisoning. Letters from John Dee, her trusted scientific advisor, reveal that he had warned her as early as 1578 about the dangers of her cosmetics, but Elizabeth refused to listen. She believed her appearance was inseparable from the stability of her realm. To appear old, scarred, or frail was to invite rebellion and endanger the illusion of her eternal, almost divine, sovereignty. The survival of her authority demanded a constant performance of vitality, and her makeup became the stage mask of power. This illusion was so complete it was managed with theatrical precision. Official portraits from her final decade were never painted from life. Instead, artists were given idealized templates to copy from, smoothing her skin, enlarging her eyes, and erasing every imperfection. Court accounts show that wig orders tripled in her last years. Special lighting was arranged for public audiences, ensuring that shadows would hide the damage that cosmetics could no longer conceal. Behind this flawless visual facade, a monarch was slowly eroding both physically and mentally under the chemical weight of her crown. As her health declined, so did the mechanisms of concealment. Secret letters between her advisors reveal the extraordinary efforts to protect her image. Meetings were cut short to hide her fatigue. Public ceremonies were limited to daylight hours. And when her tremors became too severe, rumors circulated that doubles women trained to mimic her posture and voice were used for appearances where she would only be seen from a distance. Whether these tales are myth or reality, they show the incredible lengths to which her court went to maintain the illusion of an unchanging queen. In an age when monarchy was divine theater, image was survival. When death finally came, it was less a tragedy than a release from a lifetime of performance. Elizabeth died surrounded not by loving family, but by attendants who were terrified to even approach her. For 15 hours, she refused to lie down, as though she could hold off mortality by sheer force of will. When she finally collapsed, cushions had already been laid on the floor to catch her. 4 days after her final silent breath, the Queen of England was gone, leaving behind a kingdom at peace, an expanding empire, and a body filled with the poisons of her own making. The woman who had ruled for 45 years, defying invasion, rebellion, and scandal, was ultimately undone by the mirror she had served too faithfully. The strange aftermath of her burial only adds to the enigma. Eyewitnesses claim that gases built up inside her sealed coffin until it cracked with a loud bang, an event some interpreted as a sign of divine judgment. Modern science offers a simpler explanation. Bodies laden with heavy metals decompose abnormally. producing chemical reactions that could easily cause such an event. Whether literal or symbolic, the story captures the eerie truth of Elizabeth's death, that beneath the gilded pageantry of Tudor power lay the decay of human flesh, poisoned by its own pursuit of perfection. 4 centuries later, her sealed coffin still lies beneath the Lady Chapel of Westminster Abbey. It has never been opened. Its secrets remain intact. Modern technology could easily test her remains for traces of lead and mercury, revealing once and for all what truly killed her. But perhaps that mystery endures by design. The queen who ruled through performance may have ensured that even in death, her final act would remain unseen. The silence of that lead-lined tomb is her last command, that some truths are more powerful as legend than as fact. In the end, the tragedy of Elizabeth I is not just that she may have poisoned herself. It is that she embodied the eternal conflict between appearance and reality, between the mask of power and the human vulnerability it is designed to conceal. The same forces that shaped her world fear, image, authority still govern our own. In every leader's carefully managed portrait, in every public illusion of perfection, we can hear an echo of the same paradox that consumed England's most famous queen. Her reign proved that image can build empires. Her death reminds us that it can also destroy the person behind it. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more hidden histories. We'll see you next time.